Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Infernal Intercourse. It's me and Pastor Brian again. And
Hello.
if you like these, then hit like and subscribe. And I'd love to see a few more subscribers on there and help me crack 200 because that would be kind of fun. So this time for Infernal Intercourse, Brian and I are going to be discussing some of the secondary characters like Ella and Maze and Eve. And then we even saw Adam at long last in this. And then, of course, Brian's favorite character, Dan, who finally gets his just desserts in the form of all the pudding cups he could possibly eat. So, Brian, take it away.
Yeah, it's funny because early on in, I don't remember which episode, but I said to myself, I said, "Oh, are they setting up an escape for Dan?" Right? Like I guess when I saw his loop was different, and then there was a moment where it seemed like he had a little bit of a revelation, and then it just cut from there, and I'm like, "Well, wait, did he just go to heaven? Was that it?" But it wasn't. But ultimately, I do like the way they resolved Dan's character.
Mm-hmm. I like that he got to
And
talk to Trixie one final time there.
yeah, and that was it, right? That was what was causing his hell loop, is he thought he had been a terrible dad and all those things. And I think, boy, is that a universal, really relatable. I think most parents, ultimately, no matter how much they love their kids, I think they feel like they screwed up something, and that's sad. That's a shame. And so it's always nice if they get that. So I love Dan. There were a couple times where they had to get their digs in and make him the butt again and treat him badly again, and he definitely kind of got the bad luck as usual. But no, they resolved it in a way that I really enjoyed.
I
I
kind of
did
like
not.
that part of his problem was that Lucifer was being nice to him, so that by removing him from the hell loop that he should have been in,
Yeah,
just delayed his ability to get out of it because now he didn't know what he was feeling guilty about. And you know that Lucifer did that because he didn't want Chloe and to think about Dan being in his hell loop. So I took him out of the hell loop, and he's not suffering, but then it actually sets him back by not being able to figure out his guilt.
and that's a fun thing with Lucifer. Kind of like that's the old Lucifer, like not thinking of the consequences, right? Just kind of acting out of motion. But it also, Dan was the one, I guess, that really established the baseline for how one does get out of hell, which set up, because especially it definitely seemed counterintuitive and even annoying to me at first when Lucifer is like, "Well, I can't help you, I can't help you," and then when Amenadiel says, "I can't help you," it starts to make sense. It's like, yeah, I mean, it really is. It's something you have to understand yourself, and we've disadvantaged you, Dan, because we've not even, you can't even go back to your loop. But that did establish, what comes later with how it all resolves with Lucifer and everything else. So yeah, they used him pretty well.
Yeah. And I
And
like
my
that we finally get some explanation for what free will is in this universe.
yeah,
Dan really helps us with that because it has been annoying to me that we have gotten over the course of the seasons just these sort of glib, well, if you feel guilty, you go to hell. And it's like, okay, but what about that little old lady who wants to feed stray cats and she sees them die in the winter and she's so guilty that she can't save every cat in her neighborhood on her little fixed income. And so she has all this guilt. And so she goes to hell, but say that the serial killer who doesn't care, he goes to heaven. But it looked like here we're getting a little more explanation that everybody has some kind of guilt they have to deal with because the serial killer said he didn't feel guilty, and yet we see him in hell. So he must have felt guilty on some level. And and then with Dan, we start to beginning to understand with his discussions with Maze on what do I feel guilty about now? I thought I worked through it. Now I'm still guilty. Obviously, I'm still not in heaven. So how do I fix this? And so we've had these discussions on how you have to figure out your guilt, and angels can't do that for you. So in a way, demons are helping you in a sense because they're exposing your guilt for you then to choose to deal with or not, right? But at least then we know when Amenadiel and Lucifer say, "I can't help you. I literally cannot help you because there is free will, and I don't have the power to abrogate that. I can't change your free will." So finally, we get an explanation on how do you get out of hell and what sent you to hell in the first place.
and 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 it helps explain why Lucifer had guilt about it, and how we rehabilitate the demons, because you're not really helping me find my guilt when you're elevating all the terror, right, and you're torturing me with it. I'm never going to be able to come to some self-realization through that usually. But as we rehabilitate the demons, and then which is a great scene, I think. But and that's for Ella and Eve. That's Mazikeen and Eve. That was a great moment, I thought. But I think that's cool. It kind of makes sense even over the whole arc of the story that, like, of course Lucifer was miserable because he was just there to torture, and of course, how is he redeemed by helping people as opposed to torturing?
Yeah, because I've been saying for a long time, Linda needs to go down and empty hell by being everybody's therapist, and so I can't. Maybe she will eventually, but at least somebody went down and being everybody's therapist. It just turns out to be Lucifer.
It's kind of funny because my theology of, we make hell on earth, like that there's not necessarily a hell afterlife. Well, if we could make everybody, deal with their crap here on earth, then we wouldn't need that hell, right? And so,
oh yeah, at least this turns into a not eternal punishment now.
Yeah.
So that there is redemption, there is a way out. And before we were just told there was a way out that no one had ever taken. None of the doors were locked. Anybody could walk out at any time, only nobody ever has. And then we saw somebody where he kept trying to show him the door this time. It might have been the dude where we had the cartoon universe. But he can't see it because he hasn't worked through his guild yet. So it's like, okay, so the door's not locked, but he can't perceive it. So we assume everyone's in their hell loop, not seeing their own doors. But now we know how to make them see their own doors. We got to send therapists out there and get them to deal with their guilt.
And we got to see, Dan as a ghost, and then Dan, possessing, I guess, the body. And then we got to see the demons as zombies. So I mean, it kind of all. Those are fun things. I like fun things when they make sense and they're not too gimmicky. That moment for Eve and Maze, where Maze is there with the demons and saying, because it really was. I didn't feel like it was a false drama when they were arguing. Like it was a very real example of, like, I haven't dealt with my stuff, and now I just expect you to live isolated because I don't want to deal with my stuff, right? And I didn't understand why Amenadiel didn't want Linda to help them at that dinner where they were really having that argument. But ultimately, they were able to work through that, and I thought that was great. And I love that the demons were rehabilitated in that too. So that was great. And we got to have a cool wedding, and it was, wedding scenes bore me, cliche, whatever. But it was a pretty good wedding, as you might expect with those characters. And I loved the line that Linda opened with, that between heaven and hell is an imperfect place. And I, as a pastor, will use that at weddings in the future for sure. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, we got to see more Mazikeen Eve, which is great, and Dan, seeing Dan's resolution to his arc was really cool. You can have all the pudding cups he can handle, and she can have all the waffles that she wants, and just sit there in their little garden and eat and have fun, which seems to be boring after a few trillion years, but maybe not. I mean, yeah. So also we got to see a little bit of Ella this season. She finally got apparently a decent boyfriend, who's not a serial killer or a drug dealer or someone else who's not very savory. But yeah, this like stand-up good guy who his biggest secret apparently is that he's been in rehab and is working through his problems, and now has come to LA to be a detective, and he and Ella are having a relationship, so that's cool.
Yeah, he was almost a little too good, but no, it was all right.
They want everyone to have a good ending in this season. Everybody's going to get their happy ending, which it was treacly, but I liked it. I have to admit, everybody got to be happy, so okay. But I wasn't quite sure what was the moment that Ella finally twigged that the supernatural people in her life were actually supernatural and not just pretending to be supernatural or claiming to be, but are just people who were like method actors or whatever. But yes, that Lucifer really is Lucifer, and Mazikeen really is a demon, and then surprise, my ghost friend really is an angel of death. Well, did we see the moment she figured that out? Because I
think it was when she kept seeing Amenadiel speaking to Dan, or in other words, I think that's when she put it all together. because that happened, and she kind of, and maybe even vocalized it, but then like as soon as when she came to the wedding, she was already like saying it, right? Like she was watching Amenadiel do that again, but like that she had already seen that before, and by then she had put together who everybody was, and that led to that drunken moment of her speaking. But I mean, I felt like that was the moment where it seemed to me they were saying, she has sealed it by watching Amenadiel doing strange things.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in a couple of things. I was disappointed she never got to see Lucifer's wings. I was disappointed that she didn't remember she took Lucifer to mass. I mean, I think that if I suddenly realized that the person I had taken to mass was the actual Satan, he was real, and like, blood didn't come out of the walls or whatever, or the crucifix didn't crash down from the ceiling, whatever, or the holy water or whatever didn't just like boil out of the font when you walk by. But to actually be something like, oh my God, I took Satan to mass, right? Which you think that would be it's the same thing, which is like, oh my God, my best ghost friend is really the angel of death. That seemed to set her back, but somehow Lucifer didn't seem to set her back as much, I guess. I don't know. She seemed to take it. She took it well enough, I guess, but she was angry that no one had like really like reinforced it for her, and yet she doesn't tell the boyfriend, right? She doesn't say, "Hey, Carol, I know God. He's my friend Amenadiel. I know." Then you got Lucifer, dude. He's the actual Lucifer. She doesn't come out and tell them that.
Yeah. So. Well, and I mean, I think that's what brings her to be able to integrate it. I think they overplayed her anger about being left out. I have said many times in past episodes that I didn't understand why they excluded her. She's a really reliable, trustworthy character for them, but I think I've long felt she's the best crafted character in the show, and I felt like they kind of weakened her this season, but I feel like they brought her around eventually. I don't like a lot of whining and the typical stuff, and also just making her a little overly neurotic, at a few moments too. So, but I like that they really zoned in on her as a spiritual character, and I like that she was able to intuit it, right? Like, in that she felt in her prayer life that there was no one there, and I thought that was a really cool exploration of that. There are a lot of people who go through that long, dark night of the soul, So that was very cool. And I also like just in general that, they take out that dichotomy, right? A lot of people, I think, abuse religion by thinking of it as this big war between good and evil. You get a false binary and all this stuff. And so, they take that out of this. And I think that's a much healthier way to look at it. And so it kind of completes her spirituality in that she can stop looking at everything as this great, separate battle, and instead it all becomes integrated for her. So that was nice.
Yeah. So Ella comes around, and that was fine. What was the other thing I didn't really care for, but I forget now. All right. So this season, then we actually finally meet Adam. Yeah. He is introduced, and so we know now why I guess Abel was the jerk that he was.
Yeah, within 3 lines, I was like, "That's Abel's dad." Like, I mean, just immediately, it was. So that's good writing, because that was very clear that they were very similar. Yeah.
He does seem to come around awfully quickly. One session on the couch, and suddenly it's like, "Oh, I got too much toxic masculinity. I need to like get rid of that." But then at the same time, I mean, you don't want to spend a whole lot of time with this character, because we got our beloved characters we have to go back to. So just introducing him and the kind of fixing him, I get fine. But the fact that he then like offers to walk her down the aisle, even though technically I guess they're dead, so maybe they're not still married, but that he has kind of come around to like she's her own person, she doesn't need him, and that he's cool with that finally.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little quick, but I liked it. I liked the arc. I liked the story of it. It's kind of something that I had hoped would, Abel and Cain could both kind of like be rehabilitated a little bit better like that. And instead they just did this like in the snap of an eye.
I guess they'll be on the couch eventually too.
Yeah.
So
I liked it. I made a note as soon as Adam came in. I'm like, okay, I like this. I like the way Adam came in. I like the way Adam was interacting. Right. I think it was great because it did help Eve and Mazikeen to face some of their issues. Right. So that was a cool thing. Yeah.
Okay, so any other characters? I guess Maze and Eve and their wedding. So that was really cool. You mentioned that you liked that line. And any other
And well, Maze and Eve, it bothered me that again, it drives me crazy when it's like I'm a victim of problems that I'm creating myself. But they eventually resolved it. So there was a weird moment early on where like they were really cuddly cooey, and it looked like they were going in for a kiss, but then they like stopped short and looked uncomfortable. And I started thinking to myself, I thought, okay, so did the script call for a kiss and the two performers were uncomfortable with that moment, and do they get along in real life? Like, there was just a moment in the first episode where I thought that was odd, and then there was that odd moment where Mazikeen like does this like interminable like close in screenshot where she's having emotions after she and Lucifer talk. But I loved her riding away with skulls as dragging behind the motorcycle. That was awesome.
all right. So that's our discussion, I guess, on secondary characters in Lucifer. We liked seeing a lot of them. The new character, the detective that Ella ends up dating, he was cool. And even Adam turned out to be cool. Well, we know that he couldn't get very much screen time, so he did kind of get a real quick turnaround. But at least we finally got to see Adam. I mean, I was kind of thinking about that for when we saw Cain, and then we saw Abel, and then we've seen Eve, and it's like,
and even Lilith, right? Like,
even Lilith. So the only one we haven't seen is Adam. Well, okay, they finally fixed that. So,
well, right. it would have been great if they'd have like turned Adam gay or something. Maybe that would have been a fun twist to it.
Oh, they already did with Eve, right? So
yeah, that's true. You're right. You're right. They did already do that.
All right. So remember, if you like this, hit like and subscribe. If you didn't like it, you could hit dislike. And either way, leave us a comment. What did you think about the characters and how they were dealt with in season 6? And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.